Today, I will be unboxing and supposedly open box iPad Air 2 running its original software version, iOS 8. So without further ado, let's get this thing out of the box. Alright, no need for any eBay seller packaging, of course, except they did put like bubble wrap on the device. So I'm just gonna have to like pull this out because the pull tab is all messed up, of course, because they just took the plastic wrapping and put it back on here. So, yeah, let's just take this out of its thing here. Of course, we do have the gold color. And this definitely is in open box condition. There's no scratches whatsoever. It is slightly dirty, but other than that, it looks very good. Now, without further ado, let's get this thing powered on here. As this powers on here, we can take a look at some of the accessories they got in here. It looks like we got like some like paperwork in here. They might have taken some of this out. Looks like that is like the iOS 8 home screen here. That actually is powering on in the back, you can see. Yeah, you can see the stickers and everything. iPad info, stuff like that. We got the charger, of course, which is good. And let's get this thing powered on right here. And here you go. We can see we do have a different wallpaper applied and it's already activated. But I can tell this is iOS 8 because of this red music icon right here, which was removed in later versions of iOS 8. So at the very least, this is iOS 8.3 and earlier. So without further ado, let's go to general and about, and we got to see the iOS version right here. We're running the very first iOS version, iOS 8.1, as this was released a little bit later into iOS 8's life cycle, meaning iOS 8.1 is the very first version that this device runs, which is very cool. Let's also set up Touch ID right here. So I'm just gonna place my finger here, and there you go. You can see it is going in and working. All right, address my grip. I have to continue. Okay, and there we go. We have Touch ID set up here. I'm gonna set a passcode, and there you go. You can see we have the fingerprint added to this. So let's give this a try. And there you go. You can see Touch ID is working on iOS 8.1. And wow, there you go. You can see this thing is basically open box condition with 100% capacity and only 6 cycles. Now, don't freak out over the manufacture date right there, saying it's 2024. It was not manufactured in 2024. Sometimes Coconut Battery freaks out and like does this thing where it'll add like 10 years and yeah. So say that is 2014 on 9/30, meaning this is a very early manufactured model, as the iPad Air 2 did release on October 22nd of 2014, meaning we have one that is very early on. That's why it's on iOS 8.1. All right, now that we have confirmed the iOS version, let's go over the specs and history of the iPad Air 2. The iPad Air 2 released October the 22nd of 2014 in 3 color options: silver, gold, which of course this one is, and space gray. It had storage options ranging from 16 to 128 gigabytes. This one, of course, being the classic base 16. It, of course, was the first time iPad had Touch ID, as the iPad Air 1 did not have this, weirdly enough, when, of course, this was the high-end iPad at the time in 2013, and Touch ID released the same year with the iPhone 5S, so I don't really know why they didn't do that. And overall, it feels pretty good in my opinion. Okay, just for reference, the one on the bottom is the Air 2. The overall design of this iPad Air 2 is much thinner compared to the standard iPad Air. It may be hard to show over video, but a big giveaway is looking at the speaker design on the iPad Air 2 versus the iPad Air 1. On the iPad Air 1, it just overall looks a lot more thicker. If it's kind of hard to tell. As you can see, it has 2 rows of speakers and grates or whatever. On here, it's just 1 row, and overall just kind of does look a bit thinner. And if you hold this in your hand, you can definitely feel the difference between the iPad Air 2 and the standard Air 1. But in technical terms, the iPad Air 2 is about 0.24 of an inch, and the Air 1 is about 0.29. The speakers also overall seem to be significantly louder on the iPad Air 2 compared to the iPad Air 1, to the point where it almost feels like when you play something on like full loudness, the entire iPad just kind of vibrates, which I'm not going to be able to show you, but like it's just like very unbalanced audio wise on this iPad Air 2, which I'm not really sure why. Maybe it has to do with how thin it is and this thing just being thicker, but I do know this has way louder speakers compared to the iPad Air 1. So this iPad also now featured the triple core 88X chip with 8 core graphics and 2 gigs of RAM. This future-proofed this device all the way up until iOS 15, where recently it received a new update for iOS 15.8.6, which is absolutely insane if I'm going to be completely honest. To show how huge of a performance jump this was, let's compare it to the iPad Air 1. The iPad Air 1 had the standard dual-core A7 chip with quad-core graphics. So saying this device is powerful is kind of an understatement for the era this released in. The display also featured a laminated display for the first time and an anti-reflective coating. If you do not know what any of this means, Let me break it down for you. A laminated display is basically when a display is fused together, making it just one huge part. As before on the iPad Air first generation, it may be hard to show here, but it has a very visible air gap because the digitizer and the actual LCD on the screen is separated. The digitizer is basically what does the touch, and the LCD is the actual screen. Now, on the iPad Air 2, this is just one huge part. So that means the content is a lot closer to where you're touching, and it overall feels a lot better. And like when you tap it, it doesn't really feel hollow. Now let's compare that to like the iPad Air 1, for example. Sounds a lot more hollow, doesn't it? Now, what is an anti-reflective display? Well, the name speaks for itself. It is basically a display with a coating that basically removes any reflection hitting it, and it is very visible. So let's compare that to like the iPad Air 1 right here. And there you go. You can see this thing is actually a massive mirror. This is not even close. And then we go look at the iPad Air 2. It does kind of give it a more tinted and like less reflective look. Now, the weird thing about these features is that it's not a mainstay on like iPads for some reason. The latest base iPad 11 lacks a laminated display and a anti-reflective coating. Now, higher end iPads do have this feature, but I'm not sure why the base models do not. It should not be that crazy of a cost jump, but we all know obviously this is just a way Apple can like justify pricing these things higher and like paywalling it to a higher price point. The front camera got a slight improvement on this iPad, now featuring a 8 megapixel front camera. The iPad Air first generation had a 5 megapixel front camera, but the selfie camera was virtually the same to the iPad Air first generation. Now, onto the battery. The battery on the iPad Air 2 had to be scaled down even further to have such a thin design, like what the first generation iPad Air had to do when it launched, with about a 1260 milliamp hour decrease on this iPad Air 2 compared to the iPad Air first generation. Now, let's get into iOS 8. Since we, of course, have a very early version of iOS 8, this means we do not have Apple Music and we just have the classic music app. As on iOS 8.4, Apple added Apple Music, and it got this more like white music icon compared to the red music icon we have on iOS 8.3 and below. For iPhone, the health app was of course added, where you could track your like health and fitness data in here, as you can see. The camera app got some improvements like time-lapse mode, as you can see right here, where you could capture time lapses, as on earlier versions this was not available. Capture timer was also added, which is usually great for like group pictures or if you're like setting something up to take a picture with. So all I got to do to like access it is I just have to like set a timer, and there you go. You can see it goes and tries to set it and has a capture timer on there. Continuity and handoff was added, which is absolutely an amazing feature. How it works is if you have multiple devices all signed into the same Apple ID and also on the same Wi-Fi network, the content on your devices would be able to be used on your other device, like Safari pages, reminders, etc. You could also make and receive calls on your iPad or MacBook, or receive SMS or MMS messages. Family sharing was added, where you could share iTunes, iBooks, and App Store purchases with up to 6 members of your family. You could also pay for your family's purchases with just a single credit card, and also approve your children's purchases with another feature called Ask to Buy. A feature called QuickType was added to the keyboard, where it pretty much predicts what you're going to type based on what you're typing, or in other words, just gives you related words. So like you can see it right here, and you can see it's really just telling me iOS 8 is better. It says the new version is better. But yeah, you can see it kind of just predicts what you're going to type. This does not exist on iOS 7 or earlier, and it kind of just sucks to type on these versions once you've tried QuickType. A feature called Interactive Notifications was added. On iOS 7, if you just tapped or tried to hold on a notification, it would just bring you right into the app. iOS 8 made notifications interactive, and you could perform actions without actually opening the app. For example, for like iMessage, you could reply to messages right from the notification center. You could also do stuff from the notification center on third-party apps that are of course supported. Spotlight search would now display stuff from Wikipedia entries, places nearby, movies, popular websites, App Store, iTunes Store, and iBook Store. So I just searched up Yeet Age, and there you go. You can see search Wikipedia is right there. Now let me quickly show you Siri, since it still works. Siri, what is the weather in Los Angeles?
It's currently clear and 72 degrees in Los Angeles, California.
Siri, play We On Now by Blizzy Boy. I don't know if you can see it, but it started playing that song. Siri, who plays in the Super Bowl?
The Seahawks play the Patriots in Super Bowl LX on Sunday at 6:30 p.m.
Siri, when does the baseball season start?
The MLB regular season starts on March 25th, 2026.
Siri, open Subway Surfers. And there you go. And yeah, there you can see Siri is working very well, actually. Now let's just explore the device a little bit further. The first thing I want to show you is the App Store, as the App Store on iOS 8 is the earliest App Store that still natively works to this day, meaning I can download apps from the App Store. But of course, I'm just going to sideload because it's a lot easier and a lot more convenient than going on and using the App Store. But you can see everything is loading very well in here. And funny enough, you can see the crappy Keynote liquid glass icon. Let's take a look at iBooks here, as this should load perfectly fine, and we can see all the books are loading up well. And yeah, let's take a look at Newsstand. There's not going to be anything in here, but you can see it's there and it's working, sort of. Let's take a look at the iTunes store and see if anything loads up here, and it looks like it, and looks like it's loading pretty well, actually. It even shows me the 2026 Grammy winners, which is actually pretty cool. I did not know it would be doing that, but yeah. Let's check out the clock app. I always like looking at the clock app. Yeah, there's nothing really interesting in here. We can take alarms. You can set an alarm in here. Like, let's mess around with some of the sounds in here. And there you go. Let's check out stopwatch, timer. Next, let's take a look at the wallpaper selection for iOS 8. As iOS 8 has some of like my favorite wallpapers, I think I do like iOS 7's a little bit more, if I'm going to be completely honest. And majority of the ones I like from iOS 8 are actually iOS 7 wallpapers, like this one, these ocean wallpapers, this galaxy. But it's not saying that like this isn't good or this isn't good or this isn't good or this isn't good. So like, let's take a look at this. I believe this was used in the iOS 8 beta. We can take a look at this one, but they're there. We have some like galaxy options. This one actually looks pretty cool. We have some like flowers, like the moon. This one, I think I saw this in my iOS 9 SE. I didn't know this was carried over, but that's pretty cool. And there's a couple of others in here, like this leaf one. And then there's just some like abstract choices in this device, like this one, which I don't hate, but I'm not a big fan of abstract ones. I think I'm going to switch it to the one the seller had on here, which is this one, as I do like this one quite a bit. And this was the one I used back in the day on my iOS 8 iPad Air 2, which was actually like my very first Apple device, ironically enough. Let's take a look at the photo booth app, as I always do look at the photo booth app, and you can see all the options they got in here, like the mirror, normal, light tunnel, all this stuff. Like, yeah, you can see it's working well. You can see the very transparent classic reminders application, which I really like how that looks. We can take a look at maps, which maps still not loading for me on iOS 8. I believe you have to have iOS 9 and later for maps application to actually load in my experience. We can take a look at the camera app, and you can see all the options they got here, like photo, video, slow-mo, time-lapse. Go all the way back down, you got pano, which I didn't even know they had this on iOS 8, which is pretty interesting. And yeah, that's that. And now let's look at some other stuff quickly before we get into these applications. Let's quickly take a look at the music application, and we can see it is working very well, and I don't think this wouldn't be working well, to be honest. I mean, I did sing all this with iTunes, as that's the more better method than like going on the iTunes store and like downloading stuff and buying, going to be completely honest, because I'd rather just get it off of iTunes and sync. But yeah, and now let's take a look at like some games in here. I always check out Minecraft, as this is like one of my favorite games to play on iOS 8 back in the day. I got an earlier version of Minecraft for more nostalgia reasons, obviously, but we can see it runs very well with the insane processing power of the iPad Air 2 for this time period. And yeah, there you go. You can see Minecraft is up and running there. And there's one I did want to take a look at and just to mess around with, because this game is technically optimized for iOS 4.3, and I know it's just going to run insane on iOS 8. And this is Minecraft Lite 0.21, which is a very old version of Minecraft, which was technically the free version of Minecraft back in the day. And this runs insanely well because it's not even optimized for this version of it. But of course, 32-bit applications still do work on iOS 8, meaning I can like take a look around this place, and it does look very old and it does run very well, which is also very cool. But yeah, we can take a look at Subway Surfers finally. I did play this a little bit earlier, not gonna lie, just to test around applications on this thing, just to see how it feels, and it overall feels very well on this version. Like, it feels very good. It does sort of feel delayed. I'm not sure if that's just the device being slow or something. I don't know. It does sort of feel delayed when I like swipe around, or if that's like the version or something. I assume it's just the version and it's kind of buggy and not optimized for this iOS, which is completely possible if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, you can see it is running up here. I feel like this might be an earlier version. That's kind of why it feels a little bit delayed. I don't think there's anything wrong with the touch on this device, if I'm going to be completely honest. This device is in pristine condition, so I don't think it's anything wrong with the device. Why this sort of feels delayed, but yeah, anyway. And anyway, that's that. Let's take a look at YouTube finally. And I did load up a song on here, so you can see this is working very well here. And I pulled up a song, so yeah, you can see everything is loading well. We can click on another song. It does take a little bit for it to work. Like, it usually throws playback errors. That one did not throw a playback error. I've been playing a lot of this Ocean Gang stuff recently. I actually really like this guy's music. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, that's the old YouTube app. If you're curious about what Cydia looks like, before I show you the jailbreak process, this is what old Cydia looks like on this version. And for some reason it's throwing errors, but anyway. You can see it is loading up very well here. We can see all my installed stuff on here. And yeah. Now here's the jailbreak process. Make sure to stay around to watch this part of the video. It's quite interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna plug this right into my computer right here, into my Mac, into Legacy iOS Kit to save my SHSH blobs, of course. Drag restore.sh into the terminal. Okay, I'm gonna hit update. Okay, I'm gonna drag it right back into the terminal. So I'm gonna go do save SHSH blobs. It always does this. I try it anyway. Yeah, this is like the annoying method that like doesn't work, that I've like be jailbroken for, but you know, it's safer to do this before jailbreaking, just in case you have some sort of like, so even in the future, if someone figures that out, a way to restore back, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm gonna try to use the normal SSH RAM disk to save the blobs, because there's always a chance on 7 and 8 that it doesn't boot when you use, because it uses a later SSH RAM disk. I thought I broke my last iPad Air 1 with this, but we're gonna try it anyway, so I'm just gonna hit yes, and it's now going to boot the annoying RAM disks, whatever, and does what it does. So I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm going to send the device to the recovery mode, so it's now going to do this. This will take a second, and I'll show you when it does. It's gonna reboot. Okay, now I'm going to put it into DFU mode, so let's do this. Okay, just gotta keep holding the home button here. Okay, it's now going to try to boot RAM disk here, so I can dump the SHSH blobs. So let's see what it does here. All right, and all I gotta do here is I just have to hit dump blobs. Blobs should be dumped, so just hit reboot on the device. And let's see if it actually successfully boots. Because every time I boot these RAM disks, there's always a chance something goes wrong either way. So it just went to recovery mode. So let me just hit exit on it. And if I'm stuck in recovery mode, we just boot back into a different RAM disk. And so far, it looks like it's booting, which is good, because usually it would just leave a black screen or not boot at all by this point. So let's see if it boots back into iOS 8 or not. Okay, we booted back into iOS 8 with no problem. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sideload WTFIS to this thing, and then I'm going to show you me jailbreaking it, because I don't really want to go through the process of showing you me actually sideloading WTFIS, because it's going to show my Apple ID and everything, so I'm just, yeah. Okay, I've now siloed the jailbreak application. All right, this is the real moment of truth. There's a high chance this thing just gets bricked, so let's see what it does. Let's hit go. Hopefully we don't boot loop. Okay, I think we booted, and I don't think it jailbroke it. I don't see Cydia. So I ended up getting it to load, but I think there's something wrong with this, because I had to put in Cydia:// into the browser for this to even open. So I think there is a fix I need to do. So let me try that. Okay, so I did just install a jailbreak app icons fix from Luke ZGD's repo, and it did crash upon doing like a complete upgrade in Cydia. So I'm hoping this works. Okay, and there we go. I think we have Cydia on the home screen here now. And yes, we do. Okay, that is a very good sign. I just want to make sure everything installed here. Okay, on the complete upgrade, everything looks to have installed, so that is good. And yeah, that was a very scary jailbreak process. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, please consider leaving a like, subscribing with notifications on, and sharing this with someone that might also find this interesting. Check out my social media account, which will be in the description and in the end card. And yeah, this has been Derek from CertifiedLegacy, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.